The intent of this video is to discuss the B-29 bomber's sea mining blockade efforts on Japan during World War II. The sea mining campaign of Japan's home waters was called Operation Starvation. This chart outlines the 6 major bombing phases of the 20th and 21st Bomber Commands. The first column is the bomb phase from 1 through 6. The second column is the phase responsible Bomber Command. The third column is the base location of the bombers. The fourth column is the target type. Columns 5, 6, and 7 list the bomb type, altitude of release, and release time. Column 8 represents the number of missions within the phase. The last columns are the month and year of the bombing phase and its effectiveness. Operation Starvation is represented by Bombing Phase 4, as highlighted in this row. All of the sea mines were dropped from low altitude and at night. There were 45 sea mining missions in Operation Starvation. All of the sea mining missions were flown exclusively by the 313th Bomb Wing of the 21st Bomber Command. The 313th Bomb Wing was stationed on the island of Tinian. Mines were deployed by ships, submarines, and aircraft in the Pacific Theater during World War II. This map from a November 1946 United States Strategic Survey report titled The Offensive Mine Laying Campaign Against Japan graphically shows the location and vessel type deploying sea mines. The circles are minefields seeded by aircraft. The squares are minefields seeded by ships or submarines. This shaded area is the Inner Zone Mining Campaign. The Inner Zone Mining Campaign program was called Operation Starvation. Because of the distances involved, the B-29s deploying the minefields in the circled zones in Korea were staged from Iwo Jima, rather than Tinian. Operation Starvation was considered one of the most successful operations in World War II, as discussed in this 1953 U.S. Air Force Historical Study report titled Development of Night Operations 1941 through 1952. It was initially conceived to block the remaining Japanese fleet from participating in the Okinawan U.S. invasion. It was then expanded to a complete sea blockade of Japan. Operation Starvation had 3 objectives. They were to stop all good imports to Japan by way of sea, troop movements to and from Japan, lastly, shipping between the home islands. Sea mines are underwater explosive devices meant to damage, sink, or deter the passage of ships. This image from an Assistant Chief of the Air Staff document titled Impact, Air Victory over Japan shows a B-29 bomber dropping Mark 25 sea mines. This table from the reference shown earlier provides the tabular data parameters representing the entire aircraft deployed mining effort in the Pacific Theater during World War II. Operation Starvation is represented by this shaded row. The key stats of Operation Starvation include: it was conducted from March 27 through August 14, 1945. B-29 bombers flew the missions. There were 1,529 aircraft airborne. 1,427 were successful sorties. 15 B-29s were lost during the missions. 12,135 mines were deployed. Sea mines deployed during Operation Starvation were either the 1,000-pound class or the larger 2,000-pound class at a quantity mix of roughly 50-50, as shown on this page from the reference shown earlier. The mines were detonated by fuses which were triggered by magnetic induction, 40.5%, acoustic, 28.9%, pressure magnetic, 24.4%, or low frequency at 6.2%. Characteristics of U.S. sea mines are shown on this table from a September 1945 National Defense Research Committee document titled Weapons Data Fire Impact Explosion. The 1,000-pound class Mark 26 sea mine is represented in this highlighted row. Total weight equates to 1,000 or 1,060 pounds, depending on the explosive fill. The explosive fill is either 465 pounds of TNT or 525 pounds of Torpex. Torpex is around 50% more powerful than TNT, as discussed in this December 1942 Anti-Submarine Command Monthly Intelligence Report. The Mark 26 sea mines are 68.5 inches in length and 18.6 inches in diameter. The casing wall thickness is 0.12 inches. The mine is triggered by magnetic induction. The Mark 25s are the 2,000-pound class sea mines deployed during Operation Starvation and are represented by this row. The Mark 25s are similar to the Mark 26s, but scaled up to accommodate additional explosive fill. This image from an October 1944 United States Underwater Ordnance document titled Mine Disposal Handbook shows a cross-section and components of the 2,000-pound class Mark 25 sea mine. All of the sea mines are fitted with parachute packs. The parachute slows the rate of descent and lessens the water impact shock. The 12,074 pounds of Torpex explosive fill is within this shaded area. The extender is part of the arming system and is hydrostatically activated at a depth of 16 feet. The clock starter is also part of the arming system and will delay arming, usually after 45 minutes. This chart lists additional information of the Mark 25 sea mine. The mine's M11 firing trigger is by magnetic induction. The trigger's magnetic sensor will register 2 looks of opposite polarity of a passing ship of sufficient magnitude. This will either start the mine's detonation train or advance the fuse counter. The mine can be set to detonate after a defined number of ships trip the mine's fuse. This is done to foil Japanese minesweepers. The ship count can be set from 1 to 9. The mine can be rendered inert after a sterilization setting of up to 145 days. The Mark 25-1 is equivalent to the Mark 25-0, except the triggering fuse is acoustic rather than magnetic. The microphone sensor is located here. The firing device is activated when the passing ship's underwater sound is of sufficient frequency, level, and duration. This will either start the mine's detonation train or advance the ship counter. The depth of deployment is between 30 and 120 feet. The sea mine ship damage expected is shown on this page from a 1959 Department of the Navy Bureau of Ordnance document titled Operational Characteristics of U.S. Naval Mines. Cargo ship damage from the Mark 25 mine is reflected in Graph F. Graph F is split down the center based on the cargo ship type defined as either strong, left side, or weak, right side. A strong cargo ship is defined as a 3,000-ton class or heavier multi-deck merchant vessel. A weak cargo ship would be defined as a 3,000-ton or less ordinary cargo ship or tanker. The x-axis is a beam distance from the ship to the mine from 0 to 120 feet. The y-axis is the depth of the mine from 0 to 140 feet. The curves in the body of the chart represent the ship damage expected. If the ship is within Zone O, complete destruction of the ship is expected. Zone A, critical damage is expected. Zone B, hull leakage is expected and perhaps ship immobilization. Zone C, light damage expected. Zone D, minor damage expected. Machinery shock damage may occur. This chart lists Operation Starvation's 26 target locations and the distribution of the 12,135 mines. This map shows the various goods and cargo shipping routes prior to the blockade from a June 1945 Assistant Chief of the Air Staff Intelligence report titled Impact. Most of the shipping lanes traveled through the Shimonoseki Strait. Operation Starvation consisted of 5 phases, as listed on this page. Phase 1, mining to support the Okinawa invasion. Mine Japanese ports to stop reinforcements from reaching Okinawa. The mining of Shimonoseki Strait caused the Japanese fleet to detour around the western side of Kyushu. This is one of the reasons why the Japanese super battleship Yamato was delayed in participating in this battle. This map shows the Japanese shipping routes after Phase 1 mining efforts. The minefields are shaded in red. Phase 2 is called Industrial Center Blockade. Cut all shipping routes to the major Japanese industrial cities. 75% of all goods travel by ships. Emphasis on the Kobe-Osaka ports. This reduced shipping to 2 to 4 a day in May from 40 a day in March. This map shows the Japanese shipping routes after Phase 2 mining efforts. New minefields are shaded in red. Traffic almost stopped along the Shimonoseki Strait. Phase 3 intensified the mining operations in northern Honshu up to Niigata. Direct shipping routes to the Asian mainland were cut. More mines were seeded along the Shimonoseki Straits. Almost half of the mines deployed during Operation Starvation were within the Shimonoseki Straits. This map shows the Japanese shipping routes after Phase 3 mining efforts. New minefields seeded are shaded in reds along the west coast of Honshu. Phase 4 intensified the mining of northwest Honshu and Kyushu ports. Kobe and Osaka were mined extensively. These were ship repair ports, now out of action. This map shows the Japanese shipping routes after the Phase 4 mining efforts. New minefields seeded, shaded in red, along the west coast of Honshu and Kyushu. Phase 5 completed the blockage of northwest Honshu and Kyushu. B-29s were also sent to mine Korean ports. Only a trickle of goods flowed to Japan. All raw material shipments ceased. Food stocks reaching Japan were but a fraction of what was required. This map shows the Japanese shipping routes after the Phase 5 mining efforts. This table rolls up Operation Starvation parameters including phase number and name, date range, number of mines deployed, missions within the phase, B-29s airborne, and bomber losses. This table represents the tabular data of Operation Starvation, including the mining phase, 21st Bomber Command mission number, date of mission, location of minefield, B-29s airborne, percentage of B-29s mining primary target, average weight of mines per plane, B-29s lost, enemy aircraft destroyed, and mission notes. The data in the chart was extracted from the 20th Air Force's mission summaries. 21st Bomber Command mission number 179 row is shown in this example. The chart representing 21st Bomber Command mission summary from a 1945 20th Air Force's document titled Resume. The mission occurred on the night of May 20th, 21st, 1945. Mission 179 is codenamed Starvation number 13. Targets are shaded in this row. 30 B-29s were airborne. 100% mined the primary target. Time over the target was 12:48 a.m. to 2:11 a.m. See the channel's Hiroshima mission detailed for more information how to decode military and time zones. Altitude of mine release varied from 5,500 feet to 6,600 feet. 3 B-29s were lost during the mission. 1 B-29 crashed on takeoff, killing all crew members. 2 parked B-29s were destroyed during this crash. 184 Mark 25 mines were laid. 4 B-29s landed in Iwo Jima. 12 enemy aircraft were sighted, but only 1 attacked. No enemy aircraft gunner claims. 12,144 pounds of mines were loaded per each airplane. Landing fuel weight reserves equated to 802 gallons. So, how effective was Operation Starvation? The blockade and mining efforts were strangling Japan's economy. This chart represents the tonnage of shipping passing through the Shimonoseki Strait. The x-axis is a month of 1945. The y-axis is the tonnage of shipping passing through the strait. The 5 operational starvation phases can be superimposed on the chart. The August shipping traffic is 1.5% of the March traffic. The mines were deployed in densities, like shown in this image from Starvation Mission Number 6. The legend indicates the mine symbol defined by weight and fuse type. This map shows Operation Starvation sea minefields surrounding Japan. This chart from the United States Strategic Bombing Survey report titled The War Against Japanese Transportation lists the tonnage of merchant shipping cargo arriving per Japanese port. The first row is a port name. The first column is a month and year. The columns in the body of the table are the tons of cargo arriving in the ports listed. In July 1945, no cargo was arriving in the ports of Tokyo, Yokohama, or Nagoya. The ports of Osaka and Kobe were only getting 9.5 and 11.2% of their peak 1942 monthly levels. We can list these percentages of cargo arriving to the mining map of Japan shown earlier. We can also add that only 1.5% of cargo was passing through the Shimonoseki Straits from the March 1945 levels. This chart lists the Japanese imports of bulk goods of various commodities during the war years. The first column is the imported commodity. The first row is the year of import. The tabular data in the body of the chart represents the metric tons of goods. Overall, only 12% of the commodities were arriving in 1945 as compared to their 1940 levels. This chart lists the Japanese tankers afloat, serviceable, importing oil, and sunk as the war progressed. It also shows the barrels of imported oil reaching Japan. This line represents the dramatic reduction in Japanese tanker tonnage importing oil at war end. Both the tanker tonnage and quantity of imported oil reaching Japan was less than 10% of their peak values. The results of the mining operations are summarized in the reference shown earlier. Japan could not continue the war for very long. Shortages of goods completely paralyzed industry. Industrial leaders informed the government, before the war ended, that industry could not continue. 7 million Japanese would starve to death if the war continued for another year. Operation Starvation dropped 12,135 mines. This represented only 5.7% of 21st Bomber Command's efforts. Admiral Nimitz indicated that the results were phenomenal. Prince Kanoe estimated the mining attacks were equally as effective as the industrial bombing campaign. The mining campaign was the most worthwhile with minimum of expenditures. Japanese industrialists and Japanese naval officers indicated the effects of the mining campaign was one of the most serious problems Japan faced at the closing months of the war. In the last 5 months of the war, more shipping was lost due to mines than submarines or aircraft. The results of the blockage and mining efforts are summarized by this Japanese Ministry of Transportation and Communications official in this 1946 U.S. military document titled Interrogations of Japanese Industrial, Military, and Civilian Leaders in World War II. I believe air power was responsible for destroying Japan's transportation system. Stoppage of coal shipments affected war industries and coastal shipping. The mining campaign effectively stopped all shipments to Japan. A captain in the IJN indicated the B-29 mining was so effective against Japanese shipping that it eventually starved the country. The war could have been shortened if Operation Starvation had started earlier. A commander in the IJN indicated the mining campaigns were not effective enough to decide the war, but it was one of the main causes of Japan's defeat. A lieutenant general in the IJA indicated that mining shattered the production front. It caused shortages of coal and food. It wrecked the basis of the Japanese economy. A rear admiral of the IJN indicated mines reduced shipments. Mines seated in the Shimonoseki Straits and Inland Sea had a noticeable effect on military production. The largest effect was on the coal supply. In summary, B-29 saturated Japanese waterways with sea mines, establishing a true sea blockade. Admiral Nimitz stated that these efforts brought Japan to its knees. Any of the data presented surprise you? Were you aware of Operation Starvation? If you've enjoyed this video, please consider engaging by commenting, liking, and/or subscribing to the channel World War II U.S. Bombers.